Most people never get past level 3 of mind body healing, and that's exactly why they stay stuck. They do therapy, meditation, and they've read all the books, but nothing actually changes because they don't understand how to work through these 7 levels. Hey, my name is Andre, and after years of coaching entrepreneurs and other high achievers how to master their mind and body using a system that I call MindWorks, I can tell you there is a predictable path you can follow for mind body healing. And in this video, I'm going to break it all down, all the way from level 1 of being completely unaware and avoiding yourself. Hopefully, that's not you. All the way to being completely embodied and whole and in your authenticity. By the end of this video, you are going to know exactly where you are and exactly what you have to do to get to the next step. And I'll give you a hint right now. You can't think your way through this stuff. There is a doing component, there is a practicing and an embodiment component. But once you start to feel and experience it, it all starts to make sense. Now, before we dive in, I want you to do something. Just take out a piece of paper or a pen or something to take notes on. As we go through these 7 levels, go ahead and just take a note of which one resonates the most with you. That might be the one that you're at. Other than that, please like this video if you like it, and let's dive in. All right, so level 1 is unawareness. It's avoidance. It's being on autopilot. It's not even knowing that there's a thing called healing that you could even be doing. It's being completely in your head and out of touch with your body. It looks a lot like overthinking or ruminating. There can be a lot of negative self-talk, self-doubt, self-criticism, self-judgment, a lot of running on autopilot. It could look like you believe every thought that you think. I used to be there. It was really interesting. It's a lot of a noisy mind or a mind that you feel is you. You believe that you are your mind. Basically, in this stage, you are completely disconnected from the deeper parts of you, and you might be ignoring the signs of your body and the signals it's trying to tell you that something needs to change. The mindset of somebody in this place might be that this is just who I am. This is just a part of me. I can't change. Some of the common mistakes in level 1 are believing that this is just who I am. This is just the way things are. This is the way I'm wired. This is in my genetics. There's nothing I can do about this. Or not even knowing that there's something that you might want to change, if that makes sense. You tend to believe the thoughts that you're having. You tend to believe everything you think. A lot of people might also just numb out. They might numb their problems away with drugs or sex or alcohol or anything else that makes them forget about any of the even minute pain that they have in their lives. And for my high achievers out there, being in this step could look like you are using your productivity as your benchmark. You are using your output, your high achievingness, your next achievement as your benchmark in life rather than something else that's a bit more embodied and connected. In order to move to the next level, in order to get to level 2, it's really important that you start being curious about yourself. Start asking questions, maybe start journaling, maybe start meditating, although I don't like that word. Something else you can do is find somebody who inspires you. Find someone who is living a life that you want to live. You want your life in the future to look more like theirs. And that can help guide you into taking the next steps required to break out of level 1. In my case, my mind was so loud, and I used to react very quickly. I used to believe the thoughts that I was having. I used to believe just the quick things that I would say in my reactions. I would be out until 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning dancing. I would go out with my friends after work and go drinking at the bars and just stay out late. I was avoiding a lot of the things and the patterns that were a little bit more uncomfortable in my life. Overall, there was just too much of my body's energy going to my mind and used in thinking rather than actually being connected to my body and feeling what was going on. I was becoming numb and I wasn't even aware of it. So this takes us to level 2, which is awareness, where all good change starts. Awareness looks like starting to notice that something is off. You start to become aware of your patterns. You start to realize, oh, I'm living on autopilot, or oh, I'm saying things that I don't know if I believe, or I don't know if I agree with. I am noticing I'm self sabotaging myself in some cases. I'm noticing that I have low self esteem. I'm noticing that I have low confidence. There are so many things that you can start to notice about yourself and start to realize and accept, hey, I want to shift these things. I don't want to be the quiet, unopinionated one in the room. I don't want to keep having shiny object syndrome that distracts me from the goals I actually want to hit in my life. Awareness is so key. And so, someone who's aware is level two. You could even start to notice something more physical. For example, one of my clients came to me and she said, my HRV is just tanked. It's in the single digits. If you don't know HRV, you want a higher number. The higher, the better, and her numbers were in single digits. Ideally, you'd be close to like 100, between like 50 and 100. And she came to me with single digit HRV, and her stress was through the roof. So that was how she was aware. And so she was actually living in level two for a long time. Now, you can be aware and then stay aware and do nothing. And you can also add to your awareness. And you can do that by reading books, starting to discover different patterns, different ways of thinking, different ways of being, watching YouTube videos like this one. You're starting to self analyze yourself. You're starting to ask questions and do what I call self inquiry. Maybe you're going to therapy. You might be learning and getting so much context and cognitively understanding you and the state you're in, but you might still be asking yourself, like, okay, I get it, but how do I actually fix it? How do I change? Some of the most common mistakes for somebody who's in level two is staying stuck in level two, staying stuck in awareness, and not only being aware, but continuing to become aware of more, as I was just saying. And I stayed here for a long time because it's so, it gives you like those little dopamine spikes as you learn more about yourself. It's kind of exciting to realize, like, oh, dang, I've been this way since basically my entire life. Whoa, like that awareness, it kind of expands your own consciousness a little bit. It feels good to kind of realize that. I mean, it could feel bad to realize that, but it's kind of like a little reward of like, oh, wow, no wonder I've been this way. It doesn't necessarily take you to the next step, which is actually starting to change things. So don't stay in your head about it. Don't continue to intellectualize it. One thing that I noticed is that I started to read more books and do more therapy and all the things. And that basically became a form of entertainment for me, right? The brain and the body want to survive and spend as little energy as possible. And sitting down and reading, or sitting down and consuming or talking with somebody, doesn't require a ton of energy or attention or really use of your awareness. And so it can be something that consumes you as you are in that phase, and you just kind of stay like looping back and forth within phase two. So, in order to break out of phase two and move on into level three, this is one of the core pieces. And like I said before, a lot of people stay stuck here. The key to level up is to start doing body based practices, things like meditation, things like somatic tracking. These are all types of things that I teach my clients with my MindWorks method. It might sound woo woo, but this is why so many people stay stuck. All of the high achievers, all of the elite great achievers of our time all have some level of woo. And it doesn't have to be some spiritual belief in something, but that does help. But just accepting and realizing that the body is somehow connected to the way you've been. And that is so key and so important. Once you start to feel and experience those changes, that's how you progress even faster through the next levels. But for someone who's stuck in level two, just starting those practices, make it a habit. Start to sense what your body is sensing. Start meditating. Hire a coach or someone like me to help you get through it even faster. There's a link in the description below if you want to put time on my calendar. As I entered into phase two, a lot of what I was doing was a lot of journaling, a lot of self inquiry, a lot of deep meditations, a lot of reading books. Like The Untethered Soul was a great one. I highly recommend The Untethered Soul. There's a book called Running on Empty, which I also really liked. Got a lot of value from that one, a lot of education from that one that I was missing. Of course, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza is a fantastic book. There's a book called Feeling Good, which talks about depression and how it happens. And there's a book called It's Not Always Depression, which I also thought was a very fascinating book. So there's a lot of things you can do to build the awareness. They might not tell you what to actually do about it or give you an effective tool for the real next step for where you're at. But overall, reading the books was really good. So that is how I continued to expand my awareness so that I could then move into level three. So, what is level three and what does it look like? Level three is what I call connection. You start to reconnect the mind and body. It's the mind body connection, it's connecting back to yourself. And there's a lot of deeper things we can talk about there, connecting to your authenticity, to your power, to the true aspects of you, right? All of that connecting back to the self, remembering who you are. That's what we want to do from here. In order to do that, we have to connect back with our body in a physical way. So, someone who's in this phase, what it looks like is they're going to be doing things that look like meditation. They might be practicing somatic exercises. They're going to start learning how to tune into their body, how to sense the things that they've been suppressing, or to sense the things that they have been ignoring or avoiding. They're going to start to feel what their body is feeling rather than just thinking about what their body might be feeling. Common mistakes for people in this phase, again, remember I said a lot of people stay stuck here, is they don't give it the time it deserves. They don't spend the time to really build the mind body connection. It's not easy, it's not going to be done just in a day, but it can happen faster than you think, especially if you have the right tools and someone who's been there before who can guide you through it more efficiently. So, not having the right guidance can keep you stuck. Believing that this just doesn't work for me is going to keep you stuck, or even judging yourself that you're not doing it right, because that's how you can easily give up. That might also keep you stuck. But the techniques are so important. And I'll tell you why I don't like the word meditation. Meditation can be very frustrating for a lot of people. And I find that that's because it tells you to focus on the breath and to quiet the mind. And although that is something that would help you in level three, the challenge is that most people's minds are so noisy that it's almost impossible or takes way too much effort to just focus on the breath. And keeping your awareness on the breath is only one thing that you can do with your awareness. There's a lot more things you can do. And so there isn't a quick enough win for the person who's in level three or trying to get to level three when they do meditation, because it's so challenging to focus on just the breath because there's all this noise and distraction. So, at least with my clients, I teach something that's way more step by step, way more simple than something that just tells you to focus on the breath. Because a lot of people do that. And then they get frustrated that they can't do it and they give up. And that's where people stay stuck between levels two and three. When I was in this level three, I started to realize this, and that focusing on my breath wasn't the answer. And there was something deeper that had to happen. And so I started doing more somatic exercises and experimenting with other types of things rather than just meditations that were just guiding me through some type of visualization or things that were telling me to just focus on the breath. And that is when I really started to make quantum leaps forward in my own evolution of my mind body healing journey. So that takes us to level four. Level four is what I call recognition. This is where we start to not just recognize, but also begin to rewire the parts of us that we're starting to realize are more and deeper than just surface level. In stage two, we were becoming aware of things and aware of parts of ourselves that we wanted to change. In level four, we start to understand the underlying patterns and what's driving these patterns in the first place, where these behaviors are coming from, what is fueling these thought patterns that we're having, where are our limiting beliefs actually getting their energy from, and why are they continuing to show up? This is such a powerful phase. I love seeing my clients go through this. I love seeing anybody go through this. There are so many aha moments that you can have as you start to recognize and become aware of these deeper levels that happen in level four. But of course, there are a couple common mistakes that people still make. I would say the first one is that you don't spend enough time in level three. You don't build enough of a deep enough connection in level three so that the work in level four isn't as impactful as it really could be. That's the first mistake. The second mistake in level four is wanting to still hold on to some of these deeper aspects of yourself, even though they might be driving something that's not really serving you anymore. Or you start to think that, yeah, I have that, see this deeper part, but it's still part of who I am. And you don't necessarily take the perspective or see it as something that you could actually let go of and that you would actually be another level of yourself. You would be a better, more whole version of yourself if you were okay in letting that piece go. So that's another mistake. And then, of course, we think too much. So staying in this level and just thinking about the things and not wanting to progress is also another mistake. To move from level 4 into the next level, level 5, it's really important to, of course, keep going and keep doing the work, but start to realize that a lot of this work is subtle. And you want to get deeper and deeper into the more subtle and the more subtle sensations that you feel in your body. And then not only that, but start to want to let things go. Start to recognize that, oh, there's this judgment, or there's this criticism I have, or there's this, lack of self esteem, or whatever it is, or there's this attachment that I have, and actually have the desire to let it go, have the desire to change it, and start to see and understand that you will be the next level. You will be a better version of yourself if you learn to let go of and integrate that back into you. In my case and in my story, there was a lot of parts of me that I didn't like, and a lot of parts that I didn't want to continue to carry around with me and have part of my psyche. I had a very strong inner critic. I had a lot of judgment for myself and for others. I had low self esteem. I had a lot of just trapped anger and rage inside. And it's one thing to recognize that you have all these things, like we said, that's one piece. But deciding that, yeah, I see that, and it's holding me back. I don't want that anymore. I want to let this go. And having the desire to let these aspects of you go is required in order to move to the next level. Because once you do that, you're going to find that's where your power is. And that's when things get exciting. So, level 5 is releasing, learning how to actually let go of everything that we've become aware of and started to recognize the deeper patterns of by building our mind body connection and continuing to do the work. This can look like actively releasing the energy that is trapped up and bound in your body, actively releasing trapped emotions, trapped trauma, all the energy that can get stored and bound up in the body over the decades of our lives for so many reasons. And I've got other videos where I talk about how and why this happens. As you do this, you're going to start to feel things shift in your life. You're going to feel things shift in your own body. I started to feel lighter. I started to realize that my skin felt softer. I started to look younger. It was so surprising. It was so crazy. But it all makes sense now looking back because I understand what was happening and why it was going on. But your old patterns, your old beliefs are going to start to shift, and your behaviors, your actions, your words are going to naturally start to change without you having to actively work on them because you've worked and started to rewire and release at such a deeper level. Not only are you going to start actually feeling different, but you are going to start to understand and realize the power of what you've tapped into. And you are going to know because you've felt it that there is so much more to you beneath the surface that you've been that you just want to keep going. And as they say, keep peeling back these layers of the onion because there's so much more to you and so much power at a deeper level that as you tap into it, you're going to blossom. And it can happen pretty quickly. You just have to want to do it and actively do the work to let things go. Some of the common mistakes in level 5 are one, that you try to go about it all on your own. That's what I did. And I spent years trying to figure this out, a lot of it all on my own. And I know I could have gone faster if I had someone actually guide me along the way. The challenge was for me at the time, I didn't know where I was at. I didn't know the state that my body was in. I didn't know what I needed. So I felt like I had to figure things out on my own. A big part of why I'm making these videos now is because I don't want you to stay stuck like I was. And I want you to understand the big picture so that you can then take the next steps if you want to, if that's what you're looking for. Another mistake that happens is people will try to have a big cathartic release and force it. I think breathwork does this a lot. I think breathwork is super powerful, and it is. I've done a lot of it. I think it's great. However, you're trying to almost force these releases as you go into something like that. And there's other things like plant medicines too. I've done those. You're kind of trying to force this change to happen. And it doesn't necessarily work that way. Sometimes you can get a good release and a good state change, but I actually prefer to have a long term tool that I can use anytime, anywhere because I know that's going to be a lot more effective. The next mistake at level 5 is simply stopping too soon or thinking that there's a one-time fix. The number of times that I was on my journey and starting to heal my own mind and body, and I realized like, oh man, I'm so close. And I feel like I could like sense and feel the light at the end of the tunnel. The number of times that I've thought that over the years, I was like, I'm so close, I'm almost done. I just laugh about it now because you're never really done, to be honest. This is like a lifelong process. So you don't want to stop too soon because there's always more to do and there's always a next level. There's always a better version of you that's coming. But you still have to go through these 7 levels in order to get closer to that version of you. So to go from level 5 to level 6, really what you want to do is just keep going. Just don't stop and just keep paying attention to the little shifts over time. Because you might be doing work on yourself, on your mind, on your body in kind of one aspect or one way, or your thoughts are going towards one specific thing. But then in your life, you're going to notice other things start to change. Like one of my clients was surprised. He's like, I'm not directly working on the things I would say to my boss, or I'm not directly working on, how I respond to my family. But because of the work that I'm doing with the MindWorks process, these things over here are just changing. So start to notice those things as they change. Because as you do the work, you're going to start to notice shifts, but you have to become aware of them and you want to pay attention. In my own experience, I was my first ever client, right? And as I started to learn and experience what releasing felt like, it was so surprising to me because I was just doing my work in a meditation like exercise in my room on my own, but it really started to shift the way that I started to think, act, and feel and behave in the world. And my beliefs started to change. And like I said before, like my skin started to feel lighter. I started to look younger in the mirror. It was pretty crazy. So I had to continue to pay attention to the subtleties and the nuances of things and realize that, oh, even though I'm doing this work and it looks like this, the results I'm getting in life are actually looking like this. It was super fascinating to connect those dots. And it's this work that I coach people in one on one. And I get the chills just thinking about it and talking about it because I know how powerful it is and how powerful it was for me to let go of the limiting beliefs, to let go of the self doubt, let go of the criticism and all the other things that were really holding me back from being the best version of me that I could be. Level 5 is so powerful. And we don't want to stay there. We want to progress to the next level, which is level 6, which is integration. You want to start to integrate the things you release back into your life. And let me explain what that means. As you release the trapped rage and the trapped anger, for example, you're going to start to realize that because I suppressed it for so long, and now that I've started to feel it again and let it go, I can actually start to recognize as anger happens on a regular basis, and I can use it to make decisions. You're integrating anger back into your life, just as an example. All of the energy, we don't want to just completely remove it and be void of energy, but it's like, okay, now I'm more in tune with my energy, and now I can start listening to it and acting based on whatever I'm sensing I need to do. So that's one of the internal parts of integration. Another part is also start integrating the new version of you, because again, you're going to start shifting, right? Start integrating that into the future you want to create. Start integrating into the society you want to build, or the community, or the relationship you want to build. If you have a job, or you're in a career, or you're in a relationship that maybe doesn't quite feel right, as you start to change and shift and evolve, and you become more of who you actually are, you can start to integrate that new version into a better career for you or better relationships that are actually going to serve you more than the ones that you're in right now. That is what level 6 looks like. Your consciousness starts to expand and you start to live much easier. Decisions become easier and you start to step and you start to walk in life as the you that you know you are meant to be. A couple common mistakes at level 6 I think are really important. One of them is forgetting how far you've come. I think this is really interesting because really the whole goal of healing is to remember who you were and remember how you were and remember who you really are at a deep soul level. And so as you do that, it really feels like you're coming back home. You're coming home to yourself. And you can forget how far gone you were. You can forget in what state you were in. It's so interesting thinking back to my own journey and remembering times where I was like, this is not me. Why am I doing this? Why am I stuttering? Why am I forgetting what I had for breakfast this morning? Why am I lashing out or reacting to people in this way? That's just not part of who I used to be. Why did that start happening? When did that start happening? So it's cool to have a measuring stick and remember how far you've come. I think that's really important. Another common mistake, which can happen at level 6, and this was a big one for me for a long time, was trying to have and hoping other people understand the transformation that you've gone through. And not only that, but also trying to force other people to also start their transformations. Everyone is on their own journey, and not everyone is on a conscious journey to self develop and to grow and to evolve. And you have to accept that. You are, and that's amazing. And I applaud you for it. And I wish that more people were. The reality is, not everyone is. And not everyone is going to be. Not everyone wants to be. So as you start to approach the higher levels and you evolve more, and as you start to integrate these parts back into you and release and heal and start to integrate back into your relationships and society, you've got to realize that not everyone has done the work. Not everyone has gone through what you've gone through. Not everyone understands the things you now understand. And that's okay. You also don't want to just think that you're done, because I'll tell you now, you're never done. And another mistake is to still hold on to certain parts of us. One metaphor that I use with my clients is think about a tree with a lot of fruit on the tree. And as you start your journey, as you start to release and heal and integrate, you are going to find the low hanging fruit. As you find the low hanging fruit, you might cruise there for a little while saying, cool, like I did a lot of work, and you have, and it's great. And there's the middle hanging fruit that maybe you haven't thought of yet. But as you get more into the subtleties, as you do more of the work, you're going to start to see, oh, there's still some stuff here. There's this middle hanging fruit. And then, of course, you clear that, you do some work. You're like, man, that was great. I did a lot more work. And then you realize, man, there's this high hanging fruit. There's much deeper aspects of me that are so close to, like, if this is my observer and this is that aspect of me, maybe let's say it's a judgment, for example, that just runs so much closer to your psyche. You didn't see it completely before. As you start to work on the higher hanging fruit and you get closer and closer, you start to realize, like, oh, this is here. This piece of fruit is still up on the tree, or whatever metaphor you want to use. And I want to start to work on that higher hanging fruit and work on those deeper levels. So you never really are, quote unquote, done. And a lot of these deeper aspects, they served you at one time, but they don't serve you anymore. And the more work that you do, the more of these you can learn to let go of. And it really is very powerful. So to move to the next level, from level 6 to level 7, the most important thing is that you keep practicing. Keep practicing, keep doing the work, keep realizing that you are on a journey and this is never ending. You want to also start to connect with other people who are also on their journey. It is so powerful and helps you build community. And as you do that, you're now going to start to make choices that are more aligned with your authentic self. You're going to start to walk the walk that you knew you were meant for and talk the talk rather than continue to try and like live someone else's life, for example. And to do that, you also need to start to be okay letting these pieces go. I mentioned that as far as like the internal aspects of yourself, but you also want to start to be okay letting things go in your life, letting people go, letting places go. Maybe you need to move. Maybe you want a new circle of friends. I love this quote that you can't change the people around you, but you can change the people around you. You're not going to make your friends all of a sudden want to start to go on their own journeys, but you can find a new group of friends or a new community who is already on their journey. And so you can change the groups of people that you spend time with. In addition to that, also sharing what you've learned is super powerful and a really important piece to move into the next level. So that takes us all the way to level 7, which is full embodiment, full mastery of yourself, living as your authentic self in a day-to-day life. and you're doing it naturally. It's coming easily to you, although you know there's still work you have to do because there's always work for all of us to do, no matter what level you're at. You understand that growth never ends. Just like trees that can live on for hundreds, if not thousands of years, growth is a constant, slow, and steady process. And that is a process that you've embodied once you get to level 7. You believe in yourself and what you're doing and the impact you're having in the world, and you're also helping others along the way. Some common mistakes at level 7 can be to think that you're done, to think that you've arrived, and to stop doing what got you here in the first place, to stop doing the practices. And I've also experienced that in my own life. I would do the MindWorks process, I would do the somatic work, I would do all of these exercises, and I would get to a place where I was like, wow, I am so different. My life is great. Like I can just cruise now. And I got off the bandwagon and I stopped doing the exercises and I stopped having this be a core part of my life. And little by little, I could see and I could tell how my body would slowly, my mind and body would slowly start to revert back. Not 100%, of course, but everything goes in ups and downs. And as you keep the slow, steady pressure by doing the exercises, you're going to continue to stay at that elevated state. If you don't, then your smooth ups and downs are going to become stronger downs rather than smooth little bumps along the road. And so you want to continue to do the practice, continue to do the exercises so that you maintain the level that you've reached. Another mistake at this level is to believe that nothing is ever going to trigger you again. Humans are so complex. Our psyches and our psychologies are so insanely enmeshed and complex in so many different ways that a lot of things can affect or trigger you. Even if you do the work, even as you start to let a lot of things go, there can still be something that maybe gets to you and it starts to kind of like just poke at a piece of you that you didn't quite do all of the work on. There's still a little something, and that could be a deeper aspect of you and it might be more challenging to let go of, but there's still like a little thing there. And so just being aware that this is possible and being aware that, we're not ever actually done. So what can you do in this stage to continue your journey? One of the things is to keep going deeper and try new modalities. Maybe you can hire a coach, find someone who has something different, something you haven't tried before, so that you can see just where you can go with it. It starts to become fun and a great way to connect with people. One thing to realize and to accept is there's always going to be somebody farther along the journey than you. Maybe they're older, they might also be younger, but there's always going to be somebody more enlightened than you are, or just who's done more of the work, of their own work, and you can learn things from those people. Those are some of the best conversations I've ever had. At this level, you stay humble and you stay curious, and you just keep being you. One of my favorite stories about one of my clients is about how he went through the MindWorks method and he got to the point where he was letting things go. And at that point, he had finally started to re embody his true self because he had done the work, he had released a lot, and he had integrated it back into his own life. And he's a musician. So after our program, he actually wrote a new song, which was different from the type of songs he'd written before. It had a different style, it had a different melody, kind of a different approach. And it's his most popular song yet because he had become more of himself. He allowed himself to shed the parts of him that were kind of limiting him in certain ways, even if he wasn't aware of it. And as he let go of those parts of him, he took back control of himself and who he actually is and embodied that. And then through that, created, in this case, a piece of music, a song that was so much more authentic and raw and real that people connected with it way more. And in my case, something I was recently thinking about is as you start to live more aligned and as you start to be more of who you were meant to be, you start to live a life that a younger version of you would like to see you live. A version that your childhood self would be excited and amazed that you're living that way. And for most of my adult life, that was not the case. But as you start to be who you were meant to be, it's something that if you can connect with that inner child part of you, they're going to be excited about the life you're living. And that's what I'm building with Top Human. And that's what all of this is about. helping people get to who they were meant to be, rewire the mind faster than they thought possible, teach others how to live in an elevated state more quickly and more easily so that we can all raise up humanity together. That is what Top Human is all about. All right, and with that, we really just went through a whole lot of information. I hope you were taking notes. Did you write down where you think you are? Did any of those resonate more with you than the others? If you think that the best next step for you is to hire a coach, please click the link in the description below, put some time on my calendar. We'll take it from there and see where you're at. And also, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps me get this message out to more people who need to hear it. And with that, if you want a simple exercise to help you go into level 3, remember where most people stay stuck, going from level 2 to level 3, building that connection, go ahead and watch this video right here.